Welcome back to the roundup, where I've got a whole bunch of real fun stories. We have even more fraud, which of course I know Matt cannot wait to get into, but I'm going to start it off with a very, very, very silly move. And that is the Death Stranding thing that happened on Epic. So, Death Stranding, it was a redeemable Christmas Day giveaway. And, I mean, given the Death Stranding 2 announcement and people being pretty jazzed about that.
Good move.
Yeah, good move. People were really, really down on it. Now, the problem is, whenever the giveaway was announced, the director's cut was on offer. Then the store fell over. So, nice one, Epic. But then the store came back online again, and it was no longer the director's cut version, which confused a hell of a lot of people. So a little fun mixture of Epic Store fell over, and then a bit of old human error, because Epic made a Weibo post, which, I mean, yeah, of course, we'll all see it there. Xputer spotted it, though. It just turns out an intern added the wrong product code. That was it.
That's...
Snow story.
Yeah, I mean, I feel so bad, because that's the thing where if that were just entirely in-house, you go, okay, we've eaten a bit of a loss. Oh well. The intern's going to have a really bad time, a stern talking to, probably not get any further than being an intern. However, the fact that there's like the contract involved between Epic and 505 on that probably means that there's going to be a decent bit of fallout overall. They're going to have to start and go, okay, well, what's like the projection of, do Epic have to pay 505 a little bit more for that? So it's just messy. It's just messy. It's unfortunate, except for people who managed to get the director's cut.
Yeah, sure is. And now we have another story and another lesson. And that lesson is, if you are doing a fan remake of the game, announce it 5 minutes before you upload the EXE, and just pray that the EXE gets to enough places where it'll just be torrented for all time and your work will get out there. Because, well, Capcom have pulled a little bit of a Nintendo. And the latest example of this is Capcom shutting down a Code Veronica remake project that was based on assets and models from other Resident Evil remake games. So it's kind of weird. The developers actually got two cease and desist letters, because obviously one was clearly not enough. Now, the first one, they said, was actually very kind, and it asked for details and model sources. But then the second one was hostile with a more aggressive tone. Capcom allegedly cited copyright factors and licensing agreements as reasons why the project could not proceed. Now, per Kotaku, those developers not willing to share their emails, but they did say that this stuff went down in December, and there's obviously been quite a lot of speculation, as there tends to be.
Yeah, this is the frustrating part, right? Because, there's the code saying Capcom cancelled it out of pure evil since there are no signs that an official Code Veronica is coming from them. And this is the awkward part where you kind of go, yeah, to call that pure evil, they're protecting their own asses, because they're talking about like licensing stuff, especially like, they got the models for Resident Evil. Maybe they outsourced them. So maybe it's not even you're stealing from Capcom, maybe you're stealing from someone else to use this, and then Capcom will get in trouble because they got out through their game, and then that might impact how much their like outsourcing companies are willing to deal with them in the future. There's all of these, I guess, these really annoying, frustrating parts that keep happening.
Yeah.
And you go, yeah, in an ideal world, obviously, go make the Code Veronica remake, and Capcom don't have to bother with it because they probably won't. And everyone's just happy and like, hey, there's more video games and you've got to do good work. In an ideal world, maybe Capcom say, hell, come and do that for us. But that's just, unfortunately, because that will be like a big enough budget project and have to fit into their plans, and maybe even throw the Resident Evil release plans off by like 2 years if they want to do that. It's a lot more complicated than the best version of the world, where it just happens really nicely. And it's unfortunate to see Capcom, who generally are just like winning on all fronts, have to actually take a public L in this case. Of, oh, that was cool, you've turned it off.
See, it's one of those weird things where it's like, do we all like, we all like to see that work exist? Yeah. Yes. But I think we also know that, like, this is not unsurprising. I mean, what you want to do is you want to say, oh yeah, everyone should get the thing that they like, right? But like, it's not theirs. Resident Evil's not theirs to play with. They, you know. Yeah. And then if Capcom don't defend their copyright, then that, or like their trademarks and stuff, that is also not good for them. And that can come up to bite their ass.
Yeah, because you even like, for an insane example, is, right, because obviously in video games you talk about remakes, you talk like remakes and fan remakes and all that kind of, all of the fun fan-made things. You go, well, that's harmless, right? So even as an example, say the Code Veronica remake did be fine and it's good and maybe it's not even great, but people go, well, it's not Capcom who made it, so that's not a damage to the brand or whatever. But then they don't protect it and they go, oh yeah, we actually think that's fine. You can use our IP there if you want because you're making a cool project. And then suddenly some off-brand pachinko parlor has a Resident Evil machine that's printing money and Capcom go, that's our IP, take that down, that's our money. And then they just go, well, you let the game happen. You have to let our pachinko machine happen. And obviously, I imagine there'll be differences there in the court of law, but on like a principled angle, you have to go, you kind of have to defend yourself because as soon as you let, what's the whole thing, give them an inch and they'll take a mile. And it might be, you're giving the inch to these nice developers and then some other rat bastard just takes a mile.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because I then just think it's a risky proposition. But then, there is like Third Age Total War. That's that's really great and seemingly is still alive, even though loads of Middle-earth projects have been killed. So it's kind of weird to think about, but that's what's happened, and to a lot of people, it's them acting a little bit like Nintendo.
Yeah, we have to just go back to the old way where this works is you don't tell anyone about your remake. You don't make it public. Obviously, people want it. The press jumps onto stuff because it's oh, here's a great Resident Evil remake. You want to go play it, a lot of collects, etc. But you just kind of have to stay in the underground and don't talk to anyone about anything.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, but
speaking of Nintendo, we do have something Nintendo related, which is DidYouKnowGaming. Right, they had a lot of bullshit, but the good news is that, here's the message from YouTube. In accordance with the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, we've completed processing your counter notification. The following videos have been restored. So they have actually won. Their Heroes of Hyrule video is back, because ultimately, right, the stuff that they were showing off was NDA'd, but it wasn't an NDA that they signed, right?
Yeah.
They are not subject to that NDA. The person who breached NDA is the Nintendo staff. So really, them talking about that is, it is a totally fair game. So these overzealous Nintendo lawyers basically, they went in, they struck the video. The counter notification seems to therefore have been uncontested. Yeah, because that's the way that this works. So if Nintendo don't contest this, and then YouTube agrees, basically it's the way that you contest it. And then if you cannot reach a resolution, then I think the only next step is some sort of legal thing. So yeah, right. Basically, they've got away with it. That's really good.
Yeah. It's one of those things where I think it worked because DidYouKnowGaming are large enough that you could kind of go, the lawyers will go, oh, hang on, maybe there'll be a PR issue if we actually do this unfairly. We have to kind of take the L on this. And it's pretty good precedent going forward for, I think, a lot of reporting on, especially old and kind of cancelled projects and stuff. Where it's yeah, of course, stuff that didn't make it, there's going to be no impact on this being shown, realistically.
Yeah.
So outside of, you could maybe argue, oh, how much money is Nintendo wasting by having this stuff made and not come out, whatever. You could maybe argue that from a stock perspective or a information perspective. But generally, it's this is reporting on stuff. Of course it should be. Of course it should happen.
Yeah, it's completely insane. Of things that should definitely happen.
Yes.
The Switch Pro is one of them, and it turns out that per Digital Foundry's podcast they released before Christmas, there actually was a Switch Pro at one point. It was a real plan. It was not the OLED Switch. This has been confirmed by multiple unnamed developers to Digital Foundry, but that plan has been cancelled, which... To explain the sense of it, basically, when the Switch was released in 2017, it was released in 2017. By the time the new consoles came around, it was 3 years old. That's roughly when a refresh kind of would have made really the most sense, or a lot of sense. But the problem is, 2020 is also when we had massive, massive chip shortages. And that, I think, just ended up meaning that they just wouldn't have been able to fulfill their original plan without having to change things. But the thing then is, Switch was still selling really well, even with those consoles existing. In 2021, Nintendo said the Switch is in the middle of its lifespan, and they just keep on selling on the thing. Now, this is something that, as a player, I think is really frustrating. As a developer, I think it would be obviously very nice if there was a Switch Pro that could be targeted. that would be able to run a hell of a lot more games, of course.
Yeah,
but like ultimately, the only games that I'll play on Switch are like, I mean, indies that'll run at 60, first party like Nintendo games that'll run at 60.
It's only first parties, like, because even third parties, they just run better everywhere else. So if you've got the luxury of having other ways to play things, why do it? But that's where they win, is just people only have a Switch because it's very cheap in the market and it's handheld, so you don't even need to buy a TV or use a TV in a family living room or something, and off you go. But I think a lot of it is, I think they're terrified, right? Almost every time they've made a transition between generation, it's gone horribly.
Yep.
Like, so obviously the Wii, right? I can't believe this. Anyone old enough to remember the Wii from like being an adult when it launched or close to an adult and seeing like how successful it was, how, I guess, revolutionary it was. Let me know in the comment if you get that. But it was revolutionary, and then they made the Wii U, and then it sold nothing, and Nintendo went, oh shit, how did we so firmly had the ball, and we less dropped it and more just fired it out the window at full speed. And now we've got the ball again after the Switch. One of the most successful, I think, probably the most successful console history nearly. And this like absolute powerhouse. And everyone bought one during the pandemic as well, which it was not long ago. And they're like, okay, well, how do we follow it up? How do we replace that? Because we can't. We probably have to go for backwards compatibility, especially because we've got a lot of our new games developed for the Switch. Because obviously there's going to be a Mario at some point in time, because we haven't seen one since Odyssey. Tears of Kingdom's out this 2023. So you go, oh, how do you follow this up? And I guess they're just like, they're still figuring that out. But the Switch Pro probably just wasn't worth it because it was during the pandemic. And they're like, okay, well, this just isn't going to... The Switch sells and it's going to cost too much, so why bother? We can just make the Switch OLED. And that's sold like the sales figures, and that's crazy. You wouldn't expect that to be a marginally more powerful refresh with a nicer screen, but people bought that shit like crazy. So it's hard to know what they'll do, to be honest, outside of probably drop the ball again. There'll be a Switch 2, and it'll be slightly bulkier, and no one will buy it.
Yeah. It's weird. Phones are so much more powerful than a Switch these days. They should be able to cobble something together
that's the problem, the price,
retains...
right?
They should be able to do something that retains that form factor, given all the things that they don't have to do because it's not going to be a phone.
Yeah, but all the same, that like entry-level price point that they're so happy with is going to be hard to get with a lot of performance, I think.
True.
Maybe.
Like,
we'll see.
I think partially true, but like also you don't have to go with as expensive a screen.
Yeah.
Like you don't... I mean, there's
except you kind of do, because
like,
the OLED did really well because the screen's really important.
Well, I mean, here's like Asus coming in. Well, okay, yeah, fair. I mean, they could get away with is probably a better way to put it. But you look at say Asus with like their ROG Phone 6. It's got like a freaking 6,000 milliamp hour battery that lasts like longer than a Switch will. It's it has like a screen that's high refresh rate. It's just... Man, you wonder what they'd be able to do. Mm-hmm. But to move on then to Square Enix, we've got two stories. One of them, hilarious. The other one, hilarious and a little bit sad, because they are really still going full steam ahead into the blockchain space. They still love NFTs.
Yeah, well, at least the president does. Yeah. But first we have to talk about Yuji Naka arrested for crimes against video games for creating Balan Wonderworld. Or at least that's how people will like to discuss it. As I've seen people say, that's it. They think they're getting him on fraud, but it's actually just because he made that awful piece of shit. And then as soon as he leaves Sonic Team, they make Frontiers, which is a fantastic game in so many ways. You're like, okay, very good. But ultimately, he's now actually been charged. He's now been charged for buying $834,000 in stocks in A-Team Entertainment just before. And this is very funny in hindsight now that the game's actually gone. But based on insider information that they were making the first Soldier, the FF7 Battle Royale, I believe that one was. So there you go. Just buy 144 million yen in stock based on insider information. No one will catch you. I cannot believe how stupid these people were.
Yeah, this is like you'll get caught. It's so obvious.
Oh my goodness.
Like, there's not much else to say. Square Enix are cooperating, and they're likely going to get in a hell of a lot of trouble.
Yeah. The good thing is Yuji Naka is now not involved in video games anymore.
Yay.
Because he's going to be in prison. That's, as much as that's a horrible thing to say about an individual, when it comes to you see what people said about him, you see the output, and you go, you know what? This is good for video games. That's where it ends.
Unlike this. So, their president has taken his New Year's letter as an opportunity to heavily advocate for blockchain adoption, for NFTs, because, well, blockchain tech takes up approximately half of his letter. He reiterated the work on a medium-term business plan where the biggest of the three areas is blockchain entertainment, to which we have devoted aggressive investment and business development efforts. Now, of course, going aggressively into this sounds hilarious given the myriad. I mean, there's Terra Luna, there's FTX and all the fallout from that. There's even been questions being raised about Binance. It's all craziness, but it is worth taking into account some, Japanese context. So I'm fairly sure that there is regulation that has somewhat prevented FTX-like situations happening in Japan. Also, the Japanese cabinet signed off on the Priority Policy Program for Realizing a Digital Society, which, great name, and that does include basically creating a broad environment for promoting Web3, I guess having early adoption of that. I mean, they're probably thinking, hang on a second, we used to be real leaders in this whole technology thing, and our economy hasn't grown since it blew up a while ago. Let's try something. Maybe that's it. Maybe. But the argument that he made is that after the great volatility of 2022, that this will lead to the creation of rules and a more transparent business environment that will be good for the growth of blockchain entertainment. That is actually, I think, a broadly agreeable statement. The likes of FTX happening will spur on regulation that will then probably lead to a business environment that involves less craziness. Because, I mean, even outside of the very public things that we will all talk about, within the crypto space, there have been so many altcoin pump and dumps, so many, pre-sales that are sketchy, like the ICOs that are transparently just trying to print money, and then obviously, you've got all the hype, the stories everyone knows about, like with CryptoZoo because of the recent CoffeeZilla videos. It just, it is all kind of craziness. Now that said, something a bit like CryptoZoo, what it was pitched as, or Axie Infinity, that is probably the sort of thing that they're going to be interested in.
Almost certainly, just hopefully with a little bit less of the exploitative nature involved, maybe, if that's possible.
Yeah. Now, he did recognize that the profit-driven, scam-laden efforts of the last 2 years have created basically content that is based in monetization rather than being creative or artistic. I think in many cases that is very fair, and we can all agree that, technology, it is what it is. It's then how do we use that technology, right? You can split the atom and create a bunch of energy. That'll be good. Or you could split the atom and blow people up. That's bad. It's like this with so many things. And I mean, even like with the AI art thing, take the AI art thing, has that unfortunately been, it's as if the kind of get rich quick crypto bros have immediately decided, okay, away from this, now we're all artists. And that's very unfortunate because now the whole AI art conversation is just dominated by all of the kind of kickback or, annoyance to that. Whereas there are actual applications of a lot of this AI stuff that can save people a really tremendous amount of time and really superpower them at work. And I do think that there is a role for using AI in someone's creative process, which, by the way, we've all been doing sort of for years anyway. Content-aware fill tool, the AI-based object selection tools in Photoshop, lots of things like that. But, the step change is going to happen. We are able to do this now, but it's just one of those things. Is the technology really cool? Yeah. Does it then get used in a really annoying, get rich quick kind of schemy way by a bunch of people? It's extremely annoying and sort of poisons the well? Yes.
Yeah, and that's, I think, exactly what people expect from Square Enix here. Because obviously, they're talking about new experiences and excitement to customers, but considering their last live service attempts have been Chocobo GP, which we covered earlier in 2022, being a mobile-first game that went to Switch with egregious monetization, and that was canned within a year. FF7 for Soldier, where Yuji got arrested, so that game maybe wasn't worth nothing. Immediately thrown in the bin as well. Babylon's Fall, we all know that story. And then Bravely Default, Brilliant Lights, just sorry, gone, cancelled, linear. They're making terrible games, trying to get that kind of thing rolling. And then the worst, and this is just, I'm going to have to go off and want to get about it again, Symbiogenesis, where Square Enix say, here's Symbiogenesis, and everyone goes, what's that? And they don't say anything for a while, and everyone's like, that sounds pretty, that's Parasite Eve. You're going to make a new Parasite Eve. It's been a long time. Their birthday wasn't very good, but we kind of trust you now. You're good at making your core franchise games. And then they turn around and say, it's a new franchise. It's an interactive NFT Web3 project. This will be an interactive browser game that we launch later next year. And everyone goes, why? Why are you like this? We cannot, like, for all of the good possibilities, Square Enix have shown that they can't be trusted. And that's where I have to call back to actually yesterday's article from Tyler Wilde on PC Gamer. Good job, internet. You bullied NFTs out of mainstream games. And basically the gist is, obviously goes over everything that went wrong with NFTs in games, but also just a lot of it is people don't want it, and most companies are starting to listen. Square Enix, not just yet, which is unfortunate, because they do such a good job sometimes.
Yeah.
But other times they just do shit like this.
So there we go. That's it for today's episode. I always love recording roundups, actually. It's fun to just it's fun to get into the meat of a whole bunch of different stories. And if you'd like to keep on doing that, I'd recommend checking out our Worst Publisher 2022 series, where we go through the report card of every major publisher. So check that series out. Few hours of free entertainment there.
Square Enix will be a doozy there.
Oh yeah. And we'll catch you next time.